Hey folks, it's that time of year again where we ask you to do a survey for the Amp Hour. This really helps us to figure out what's going on with our audience and what's working and what isn't working, and we just love hearing from you as well. So if you're interested in participating, we'd love to hear from you. There is a link and the actual embedded survey over on theamphour.com, the show notes for this page. For those of you who do fill it out, we'll have some prizes, DMMs, and Analog Discovery 2s, and some custom Amp Hour lab notebooks that we had made a while back. So be sure to put in your email. That's the only way we can get a hold of you. And don't worry, whatever you say in the survey does not impact your ability to win, and we won't use your email for any other marketing purposes. Thanks a lot. This is the Amp Hour Podcast. Released October 13th, 2019. Episode 462. Boat Anchors.
Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And I'm Chris Gamble of Contextual Electronics.
Daylight saving again.
Yeah,
every four times a year or something.
Months.
Yeah. It's
right.
like, I woke up this morning and because the kid alarm didn't go off, and I'm late for my recording the Amp Hour, and then I message Chris and what?
This time.
What?
Usually it's the other way
No,
around.
Yeah. Anyway, we changed the other week. It's good. I like it.
Yeah. Well, welcome to it, man. Welcome to it.
It means every time I leave, it's still light. You know, it's like when I leave here to go home, it's like,
I'm not a big fan of daylight savings myself.
Right.
I think it's better to. But if you really ask me, I'd be like, well, let's just all be on UTC. You know.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
What do we got this week? Where have you been? What books have you read?
What books have I read? Oh, we didn't even talk about this before the show.
What shows have you been? Oh God.
So I have been reading. I have been reading Eccentric Orbits, which I think I've mentioned on the show before, because actually someone tweeted about it. We talked about it on episode 460.
Obviously, I remember it vividly. Yeah.
I got a terrible memory, but I have been reading it, and it's great. It's let's see. So I must have mentioned it 2 weeks ago. Oh, that was only 2 weeks ago. So I must have mentioned it then, but it's kind of crazy how much strife there was to make sure that thing didn't go down in a ball of fire. So
what thing are we talking about?
Sorry, the 66 satellite constellation of Iridium.
Right.
So cost $6.2 billion by Motorola, and those guys were a-holes. They just sounded like a company that was on its downslide, you know.
Right.
And we did talk about this 2 weeks ago because I mentioned.
Yes, we did.
I now live in the shell of.
Yep.
I now live in the shell of that corporation's
building.
But
that's right.
That's right. Anyways, it's interesting too because I've been working on some satellite-based stuff for work, and it's an interesting interacting with stuff that's. It just doesn't seem like it should work, honestly.
Right.
Yeah. Have you ever done anything like that or no? Like any remote?
Not
remote stuff?
Remote. In the military stuff and things like that, underwater comms and stuff like that, but it's not really the same, I guess. Yeah. It's like, shorter range comms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No,
it's tough when you're like in the middle of nowhere. Well, it's interesting too because reading the historical context of Iridium, that was really targeted. They're talking about we want to get the business traveler, and every high end business traveler will have one of these.
Yeah.
Even though it didn't work inside, even though it
really,
it had
I thought it was pretty good. From what I gather, people liked it and it was pretty good, but it was just not economically viable or something.
It was very, very expensive. Because of all the politicking that had to happen, each call that you made. So say you were traveling to the States, your call would go through. Even though you're talking to a satellite, it would then go bounce back down to where you come from, and then it would be handled by the U.S. and then it'd be patched over the landlines.
No, so there were geopolitical issues with
tons.
it. Tons
and tons. That's also how they raised all the money. So I won't spoil the book too much, but it's
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's Yeah, it's crazy.
It's a
just
wonder it ever got off
they
the
had to-
ground. No
yeah,
pun
I mean-
intended.
Right. I mean, like, to Motorola's benefit, I mean, they were pretty much one of the only companies that could have done it because they had the technical expertise, but they were just massive. And it's really hard. It's really hard for me to get a sense of scale. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that other book that we talked about in the past, the Bell Labs book. I forget what that was called. But like thinking about Bell Labs and like all of the telephony stuff, like even earlier than Motorola, like just the effective monopoly, and then like what that does for the scale of things you can build is pretty amazing.
Imagine if a startup tried to do the same thing. You wouldn't get anywhere. Unlike, say, like you would think, like a startup rocket company would be harder, right? There's SpaceX and lots of other startup rocket companies, right? Private rocket companies, and you'd think that'd be harder.
I don't want to cut you off too soon here. We've actually had someone on the show that did a communications hyper.
Oh, right. Okay. I obviously wasn't there.
Yeah,
Okay.
you weren't there. It's fine. But I mean, like, but the scale is much smaller, and I think we're so much further down the line.
But yeah, right. I'm talking about an entire satellite.
Yeah, like a constellation of multiple satellites.
Constellation and designing the phones and the whole thing. Right. And you would think that
like
rockets would be harder, but it's not. You simply hire a big space, lots of smart people, throw a lot of money at it, you build a rocket, and then you just apply for a permit to launch it, and Bob's your uncle, right? And it either works or it doesn't. And you either get more funding or go bust. But
I don't know if I'd say a rocket's easier, but
no. But I'm talking from the ability to actually produce a finished product and get into the market, whereas designing your own phones and satellite systems and launching them and getting all the approval and the red tape and all the geopolitics and everything, that would be a lot harder for a tiny little tin pot company to do. I think
it's. I mean, like I think a lot of it is tied to the time frame, right? I mean, like they were just inventing technology to then go and launch it into space, right?
Yep.
You and I and everyone listening, we all benefit from that. Like you can go out and you can buy an Iridium modem.
Yeah, of course.
Like it's still.
It's still
that's the story
there.
that
Still there.
It was saved, and
who's operating it now? Is there another? Is it a Iridium consortium or something?
No, it's a Iridium Corporation. So the whole book is about saving the company.
Right. Okay.
It gets. Last night I was reading for like 2 hours, and it's very lawyery at a certain points, which was surprising.
Right.
Like it's just like back and forth, and like the fact that they have all the, like who said what to whom, and it was very, very interesting. But the fact is they saved it in order to then go and target the industrial market, and that's know the kind of stuff that I think other people would use. Like if you're in the middle, so like say you're like in the middle of like I don't know. Like Kansas, right? With like nothing around. It's just wheat fields all around you, corn, wheat, whatever, right? Like there's no cell towers. Like it's not like you have elevation, like at a certain point you get to like where you just can't, you literally cannot do anything otherwise. You either got to go and try and do a bounce, like a ionosphere bounce, like ham radio or something, and you can't operate in that obviously as a company. That's an amateur band, but you got to do something like that, and it's then you start running into like curvature of the earth problems. You just run out of options. Yeah. Well, it's
I wish
too.
those flat earthers were right. It'd be so much easier.
Yeah, you just crank it up to 10 kilowatts, and then you're good to go.
You could do the entire planet. Yeah.
It does make you wonder, like, what are they? You're like, okay, like, so why isn't your signal getting past 19 miles?
Have you seen the documentary? Have you seen the Flat Earther documentary?
Is that the one where the guy was going to like do the self-launched rocket? I remember, I think we talked about it.
No, I don't think that was in it. No, that was it. No, there's a Netflix special. I can't remember what it's called.
Okay.
But it is. Hang on, I'll call it up. But it is hilarious. Okay. It's like I thought. No, there's no way I'm watching that. Yeah. But it is great. It's just
the mental
funny.
Gymnastics you have to do in order to really do this kind of thing.
Mark Sargent, who is the king of the flat earthers, he's actually doing television ads in Australia now.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah.
I think it's for cell phones, actually. I think, is it? Yeah, I think it's, ironically.
That's great.
Yeah, it's terrific. So he's such a celebrity now.
We're just over the horizon.
Yep.
Always.
And the ad takes the piss out of him, and he's happy to have the piss taken out of him. Behind the Curve It's called, ironically, Behind the Curve.
That's a great. Wait, that's the documentary's called that?
That's the documentary. That's what it's called.
Oh, that's great.
Behind the Curve. Anyway, it is funny, especially the endings. Just you'll be wetting yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
so
is.
it's interesting to me. So like reading the historical side of this stuff too, and it's like a lot of the arguments that were made, they're being made again, right? I mean, like the SpaceX launching their satellite fleet, and obviously we had the Hyper on here as well. That's more industrial kind of, SpaceX is trying to do internet effectively.
Right.
And there's others talking about it too, but it's just, the arguments are just so similar. It's, it's crazy. And it's just I wonder that about like thinking about satellite internet as well, like getting access to that, like the amount of bandwidth you'd get is, if there's anyone out there listening who's working on this kind of thing, give me a shout, Chris at theampower.com.
But wouldn't you get more from the new 5G, like a local 5G hotspot?
You're saying with satellite or with terrestrial-based 5G?
Versus satellite. If you've got 5G, of course 5G you can't do with satellite because it's only hundreds of meters range.
Right, exactly, yeah, because it's higher frequencies.
But isn't that vastly higher bandwidth that you get from any satellite connection?
Yeah, the idea is you need infrastructure though. So like all the 5G stuff is based around so if you look at like the planning documents for 5G, it's like having every building just kind of coated with transceivers on them.
On their roofs, and then they do 100 to a couple
walls
other
too.
meters, and the walls.
It's it's tons of handoff. So
inside, I know it's nuts.
Yeah.
And they're going to. I don't know about the US, but they're going to discontinue 3G next year.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow.
They've just announced, Telstra here, which is our main supplier, they've announced that, they're going to discontinue 3G in like less than a year or something. Because they reckon there's only a 6% usage at the moment, and it's dropping fast. So only 6% of people are still using 3G. So there you go.
Yeah, I've heard about that kind of thing. They've been talking about, I think I wrote an article about 2G and 3G going away.
Yeah.
And 2G still, I don't know if do you guys have any 2G towers
No, it's gone.
anymore?
No, it went years back, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that at least around here, like a lot of industrial stuff still uses 2G. And there's the only carrier I know of that still offers 2G is T-Mobile.
Oh,
and,
okay. Right.
3G, there's still AT&T towers, there's still Verizon towers, but yeah, there's a fixed amount of bandwidth and they want it, so they're going to start shutting that down and repurposing it for other things.
Gobble. They're going to gobble it all up. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so that was another interesting thing about the satellite versus, so like at the time, I was talking about this a little bit, like the high end stuff. I was really surprised, like this is around the time when like GSM hadn't been rolled out at all yet. Right. And so there was just no GSM infrastructure. So it was like satellite was the solution.
Yeah, of course.
Versus rolling out
satellite
terrestrial
phones. Yeah, you had these gigantic satellite phones.
Yeah, right. And now GSM is, because it was so, and this is when I was younger too, so I don't really remember the how this all worked too, but I was reading about, and I talked to my folks about it a little bit, but it was just about like, you had coverage, but mostly you were on your localized, carrier, and there wasn't really as much roaming. Roaming was very expensive, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so GSM actually allowed having actual handoff and better integration between different carriers in different areas.
The problem with satellite is that it's always going to be super ridiculously expensive because there's such a small market for it. Because 99+% of people live in urban city areas.
Exactly.
Like there's just not enough people out in the fringes, out in the middle of nowhere with no towers that need. They all need something like that, but there's just not enough of them to, make it financially viable, really. So they've got to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always, like the economics of how it all works out too is just tough.
And it's always going to be better to transmit to a local tower than it is to transmit to a satellite in terms of like your handheld receiver power and, like size and power and all that sort of stuff. So, it's just, local's always going to be better. Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's this is why I'm studying RF stuff, Dave. This is why
I know. This is why you're getting yourself a spectrum analyzer.
I'm getting a combo. The one that Shariar just reviewed. We'll link that in.
The new Siglent.
It was a good review. So I reached out to Siglent, and they're going to send me a loaner, and I'm excited too because I'm going to be be able to test that out. And it's still a rough. I don't know, Dave. These price points of RF stuff. I was like looking at connectors and stuff too.
It's like $3,500 US. Don't get excited that Signal have released a $500 VNA. No. It's like $3,500.
No one has
starter price, right? Starter price.
Right.
It goes up
and that's
with
before
the
all the software upgrades and stuff like that. And there's some cool stuff in there, but
it's cheap still. Like compared to the similar performance from other vendors, it's still
I mean, online I was so like there's a document I've talked about on here before that Derek Kozella had shared with me on Twitter, and it's basically like pointing out like the old HP 8753. Yeah, boat anchors, right?
Yep.
And they're still like those things are still so the 8753 ES is like it's got an option built in, so it's not just the VNA, it's also got the test set, so like the RF relay switching stuff, so you can do S parameter measurement easily without like external setup. And like those things are like, these things are like they've got floppy disk drives on them, and they're like $6,000.
I know.
It's
because
crazy.
they're still high performance instruments. They're just
yeah.
They were state of the art back in the day, and state of the art back in the day means better than entry level now. So it's like
right. That's a good point.
So even 30 years later. So
right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what is your preference when would you rather take a new, little shinier version for a similar spec thing? Because like both of them are like 3 gigahertz max, I think.
Yeah, I would. I'm not a fan. As much as I want to like and I do like the boat anchors, they're just big and heavy, and I'm always moving stuff around, and it's like,
oh, true. Yeah.
It's
so some of it's just logistics for you.
Because I have different logistics to everyone else. I don't have a fixed setup on my lab bench that is always just there. It's like I'm always moving stuff around to get stuff in the shot, and things like that. So I've got different requirements, got pretty unique requirements. But the boat anchors are just like most people don't have a huge amount of bench space. Right. So it's like,
Yeah, and especially those things are deep. They're really deep.
Deep, and that's one of the problems. Yeah. It's just massive amount of space. So
I remember I had at Keithley we had another network analyzer. It was just like it was about, I think it was the same size. I think it was a small or different version of the same like family, and it just like lived on a cart. And like that's kind of the best thing, because if you're going to be plugging front or back, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's just but then you've got a thing rolling around. You almost need like something like come down from the ceiling, like a Batman level style thing.
The best innovation in test instruments was the Tektronix TDS 220 series, which introduced this new modern short depth form factor. Bench form factor.
Yeah, but the screen on those things, I mean, like, it was new.
I know, but that was state of the art. You probably don't remember when that first came out. Right?
Yeah.
You don't remember that. I've got a video on that when it looking at the ads and a review when it first came out, and it was just,
right. And you're saying that's set a new standard for like how they form factors. And set a new standard
to what people expect from the form factor. Yep.
Yeah, it is true, and it is nice. That part is very nice. I mean, the fact that it can fit on a bench, it doesn't take a ton of space,
and you can just move it back an inch or two if you need a bit more room for your notebook or whatever. You can just shuffle it around if you need to. Really easy. But if you've got a boat anchor, that thing ain't moving. You've got to move your work around the instrument.
You literally could pull your back. You could throw your back out.
I know. Yeah, and one of the problems with buying those is shipping. My God, you try and get a shipping quote for anything over 10 kilos or whatever to Australia, and it's like $1,000 for the shipping. For like a 20 kilo, 30 kilo.
That's true, and I think that these things are in such a high demand. The one that I was looking at, it was like such high demand that I was like, Singapore. I'm not. There's like a couple in Singapore. I'm like, no, that's you have to put it on a slow boat just to afford it. It'd be twice as much for the shipping as it would for the equipment.
Yep. Nuts. Come on, but you live in the land of the free home of the brave and home of the cheap test instrument, where there's auctions galore. Where you score this is the close down of big companies like the Motorola Labs and stuff like that. They're closing down all the time. I advertise them on my website and my forum all the time. There's all these companies who specialize in there's one that keeps coming back and paying to advertise on my website because they've got yet another big lab has closed down and they're auctioning off, and there's dozens and dozens of these spectrum analyzers and VNAs and all sorts of,
I'm just looking on eBay, Dave, honestly.
Oh, no, you've got to be looking at the auction houses. If you're in the US, you have to be following the auction houses because they're just the way to go.
How would one do this?
One goes to the EEV blog forum and look at the buy sell section on there, and I and others have published these. There's various auction. There's dozens of these auction houses. So you go to their website and should be able to sign up for new announcements of latest upcoming auctions and stuff like that. So you'll get notified. Yeah. So it's a bit of work. If you want these things, you got to work for it. It's not going to be given to you.
I mean, if I wanted it otherwise, right, I would just go and pay more for a.
You go to eBay and you pay a definite premium for it.
Yeah, it's a time versus money kind of thing. So that makes sense.
But no, if you're in the US, definitely do it. The problem with the auction houses is that they typically won't. Some will pack and ship for you. They will subcontract a packing and shipping company, but usually, no, it's like you've got to arrange pickup. So either you've got to come pick it up personally, or you've got to arrange for a courier to come actually pick it up and pack it and ship it to you.
Right,
or hand carry it.
And then it's on you
and
for
it's
the
on
shipping
you.
anyways, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, if you're in California or something like that, there's these auctions all the time.
All right.
Dime a dozen, dude. Seriously. And there's hundreds of bits of gear. You can equip a state-of-the-art lab for, I'm not going to say next to nothing, but, 1/20th of the cost of what it would normally cost.
Cents on the dollar.
Yep. So, pennies on the dollar, as the Yanks say.
Yep. That's how we do money.
So do you still have pennies? Do you still,
We do, but I mean,
nobody, Right.
I've heard they're trying to get rid of them, but they've said that for years.
Yeah, right.
It's silly.
Anyway, what else are we
Speaking of copper, though, copper pennies are made out of copper, and I have been cutting copper.
Oh, you've been... you haven't been cutting. Oh, well, is it cutting or milling?
What is milling but cutting?
Is cutting. Yeah. Milling is cutting, isn't it? It's a blade.
Yeah,
it just spins, right?
It just spins, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Anyway, you've got a loaner.
Yeah,
of this.
We've talked about it on the show a lot before, right? Of the benefits of having a mill locally versus just sending out for a board or something like that.
Yep.
And I signed up with Bantam. Offered me a mill for a couple weeks. Formerly Other Mill, now Bantam Tools, and so I'm just been cutting out some boards and kind of figuring out what it looks like. People may remember I used to have an actual metal, a mill, like a CNC mill, and this is basically a much miniaturized version of it and faster.
So you don't have that
spindle.
mill anymore because you've moved since then, haven't you?
That's right. Yeah, I got rid of that when I moved.
Yep.
So
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I had actually done there's a command line tool I did that was Gerber to G code or something like that. It was a tool that basically, you output Gerbers anyways, but you have to then make the tool paths and so I at one point had cut copper clad with the mill that I had.
Yep.
But this is a much different process. It's much more software-y focused, and
does the software import the Gerbers straight and then just goes? Is it that easy or?
Yeah. It's basically you define the top and or bottom depending.
Does
if you're
it
gonna flip
drill
it over.
as well? Does it drill the holes?
It does, yeah.
Oh, okay, right. So you just change the bit, or is it like a dual bit and it spins around?
Yeah, so it changes the bit. It's just got a collet, so you undo the collet, which is the way that it tightens down on the tool. Yep. And then each time you insert it, because it doesn't know, the whole thing in milling and CNC in general is you need to know where your tool is in space.
Yeah.
You ever done milling, CNC milling or no?
No.
Okay. The hard thing is everything's relative, right? And I guess this is kind of like PCB stuff anyways, right?
Yeah, of course.
And the idea is that so you have a Gerber. A Gerber is what is Gerbers? It's an old format for kind of doing milling, wasn't it? I mean, I actually don't even know. I don't know what Gerbers look like on the inside.
History of it, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's some way that they define.
It's a coordinate-based system. You have a reference. Right. There's always a reference point.
That's right. Yeah.
And the idea being everything's referenced to that.
Right. And so if you think about if you just had, say you just had a 0603 resistor, 0603 LED, and then like a connector.
Oh
and
no,
then a
sorry.
ground plane.
Sorry, if you want the history of Gerber, I think I've got it. I think it just popped into my memory. Yes, it is for it's for photo plotting, where back in the old day, to actually create the PCB photo plots, you would actually have these wheels with different size holes, different apertures in them, and that would expose the light through, and then you'd have an XY bed. So you'd choose so the Gerber format would you would specify which tool, which aperture you're going to use. So you'd specify the aperture. Say I want a 10 thou trace. So it'd select the 10 thou hole. So you'd actually have a hole, and then it would move that around and shine light through, and that would expose. That would expose, and then
remember
it'd
hearing
move
of
on
apertures.
an XY bed. Yeah, apertures,
Yeah,
and that's where it comes from, because
from.
these wheels. So you could only choose traces that were that you had an aperture wheel for. And but that's 40 plus years ago. It's
right. It's like one of those things. Like G code too. G code is basically G code is the way that you tell a controller where your milling bit is supposed to go in 3D space, right? And you basically give it commands G0, G whatever, and then they're just like these commands that then tell it, what to do. And so the idea is on the back end, what it's doing is basically it takes the Gerbers in, it converts this crazy ass Gerber format, and then now it's like a bunch of lines, and then it has to then break down each line into all right, well, we want to cut this part out of the board.
Yep.
And so it says, oh, now there's a line going from 35, 37 to 35,
and you have to extrapolate.
42. Yeah, and so then it actually
couldn't
does that
do
in G-code.
curves. It could a curve. It'd break down into little micro steps. So if you had curved traces on your Gerber file, it would translate them into little micro. So you'd have 10,000 little elements to make up that one curve.
Right.
Kind of thing. Because I think it could only do like vector things. So
right.
I don't know if the Gerber code actually evolved to have different things, but that's where it comes from. That's where the apertures come from. If you hear the term aperture in related to Gerbers, it's a physical wheel.
G code has a curve thing at least.
Right.
I don't know. But,
Yep.
but the idea is,
I should know this. But.
Yeah, so now you're like in 3D space, and like you so again, I'm trying to draw an audio picture, I guess, but like I go and put a drill bit or a milling bit, that's similar things, but they're different. So it's a milling bit, and you put it into this collet, and you don't actually know where the bottom of the drill bit is. You probably know where the 0 is kind of like your bottom left corner of your board, and you might know the height of it, but you need to know all of these different things and where they all stack up. And so what you do instead is then you put this tool in, and then it just does a conductivity test. It goes slowly and touches down on the spoil board, or like the place where the thing is, and that's how it knows where 0 is, and then you can kind of stack up from there. But
so you have to do that
free space
calibration step before you start.
Yeah, every time you switch out a tool, you got to do that.
Of course, every time you switch out a tool, because there might be minor differences, and of course, only like and a 0.1 millimeter height difference would translate into X amount of width error, right?
Yeah, if you're doing like a V groove bit, so like what you're talking about is like if you have a bit that's so the one I use is like a 30-degree bit, and it's you're trying to just cut with the very very tip of that thing. It's like a sharpened 30-degree angle. And like you're saying, if you go down further into the material, if you cut further in the material, then then it goes out wider more.
By the ratio of the angle of the bit. So or if you tell it you've got a 50-degree angle bit and you've only got a 20-degree angle bit, your board's going to be screwed.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it needs to have all that information kind of encoded in there.
Right.
And so it's really been about like. Just kind of getting the process down. Like I said, the software is much simpler than it was when I did G-code, Gerber to G-code stuff on my old mill. But then it's about like tweaking KiCad or whatever your CAD program is to make a board that actually is friendly for this process, and then actually getting it really really flat and like dialed in. So, and that's what MG, who we've had on the show before as well. He's kind of perfected his process, and that's the one where he's milling off the solder mask. I'm nowhere close to that.
Right.
But I've been bugging him about it. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Is it practical for your usage? Is it worth it? Because, you can get a $2 board
Yeah.
in 5
Yeah.
days,
No, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's, if I was in a really tight spot, it would be nice to have this around. I'm not
Right.
usually in a tight spot, but
Got it. Yeah.
And then I think the other thing is that, like, at least so far, I've only done one-sided boards so far, and let me tell you, that is a challenge. Dave, I challenge you to go and do a board without any vias on it.
Been there, done that, dude.
Yeah, I just mean recently. Have you done it recently?
Oh, no, I haven't done it recently.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. Like going back, like if you're used to like, 8-layer boards is where I start, or like I'm used to like, that kind of thing, and then going back to being like, 1 layer. Oh God,
Uh-huh.
can I even do a ground pour here? Like I don't even know it, and so just kind of stepping back into that realm. It's your boards look very different, and
Yeah.
and I definitely remember you and I talk about on the show. It's like you'd have to redo your boards when you send them out then too, just because it's a different.
Oh, yeah.
it's a different style.
Totally.
So
No, that's right.
right, but it's the repetition and the speed with which you can make changes, and like there's really really low.
Yep.
Much like getting $2 boards made, it's
Although
you
I
can do a lot of
still
repetitions.
think back in the day I could have made a photo etch board faster than you can make a milled one.
Yeah, that's a good question too. Right? I mean, like
I could make a board in an hour from go to woe.
really, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like assuming the artwork's done, right? And then I print it out on positive photocopier transparency, right? So I print it out on a laser printer and it's transparency, and then I expose that on my positive photosensitive exposed board. We're talking, 5 minutes in the, harsh Australian sun, right? And so we're talking 10 minutes up to this point, and then you develop that. It takes 5 minutes to actually develop it, to get off and get rid of all the all the unexposed. All the exposed photoresist, because it's positive instead of negative. So to get away that, and then another 10 minutes in the etchant or something, and Bob's your uncle, and then you drill. It's done. So yeah, I can make a board. I was making boards, even at work. I would do this at companies I worked for, and I would make boards within an hour or two.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think what was the resolution you could get on that too? Like the trace
I
width?
was doing 8 thou track space.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It depends upon the quality of your laser printed things. Often you get little pin marks.
Focus
So
kind of
often,
stuff.
often you'd have to go touch them up with a little Sharpie. You'd have to go through. Oh, look, there's pinholes, and I'll just make that one a bit darker.
Right.
And it was a bit of a trick. And sometimes you'd end up with spotty traces that had little pit holes in them and stuff like that. But who cares, right? It worked.
I mean, this is just a miniaturization of the fab process, honestly. Like,
Oh
that's
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got double slit effects, and you got to deal with those too. Diffraction and crazy stuff. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I could make a board in under an
Yeah,
hour.
I think that the benefit of that is like the batch
huge
processing
benefits.
versus the
it was
rastering, right?
Yeah.
So you could, I think, and like if you needed to make more than one board too, you could do that a lot faster too.
Oh yeah, often I would do the panel, and then I'd print out 5 or 6 boards or something if I needed 5 or 6 of them, and then I'd expose them all at once, etch them all at once, do everything, and then just slice them up, slice and dice them once I'm done.
Yeah.
The most annoying thing was drilling the bloody holes.
Sure. Yeah, and if you
like-
had like a milling machine to do that kind of thing, if you could register it and do that kind of thing, that would be like, that would probably, and it's surprising that no one has really, I mean, I think I've seen like a Kickstarter for like an agitator, like a chemical bath agitator type of thing,
Yep. Yeah,
You know,
it's important.
timers and
Yeah,
whatever.
no, I'd just stand there and shake it. I'd just stand there and continually agitate.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I just mean that like someone tried to make that into a consumer product, or not consumer, but a prosumer product type of thing, and I don't know. It's interesting that there's not, like the milling is something, and I think the combination between the two would be nice too,
But unfortunately, the cheap PCB, modern cheap PCB market's just killed it. I mean, there's just killed all demand for that. There's just no point in trying to do a Kickstarter for a PCB all-in-one agitator, or
Right.
manufacture a milling machine or something like that. It's like, yeah, the market's just so small. It's the same thing with the satellite phones. The market's just not
right. Exactly. It's just a
Yeah.
really no. You're totally right. And so like someone asked me about, and I've seen on Twitter too. Someone asked about like the Dragonfly. That's another type of printer that's out there.
I think
so it's
I've
a
heard of
3D
that.
printer
Right.
that's like can do like conductive traces and stuff like that.
Conductive inks, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but it
it's
actually
just-
builds the
it's-
entire board, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't just do a conductive like it's not just the board. You're actually doing like the layers are kind of interwoven. And
Right.
so in that case, I think that you could do like a 4 or 6 layer board in a couple hours, and
Yes,
actually have it on
right.
site.
Yeah.
But that thing's like industrial equipment, like tens of thousands of dollars, like very,
Yeah, of
very
course.
nice looking thing.
Yeah.
And the only reason I could think of doing that is like because you could literally do, a 6 layer board in house in a couple
house
hours.
in hours, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So like,
Yep.
and so then the market for that is military company, like someone who
People
you don't want to send it
wanna
out.
send their IP outside,
Yeah.
so it's the CIA and the other military and other paranoid
Right.
companies who don't want to send their IP
Right,
out to
or
some
you just
Chinese
have like
fab.
really quick turn needs too.
Yeah,
that could
right.
make sense then. But like
Yep.
at that point, you're just monster company type of things.
Yep.
So, yeah, it is interesting how the cheapo market kind of impacts things. Even my own behavior, like how I do boards these days too. It's really
you
just the shipping that
build
takes a
it
long time.
into your process. Okay, well, it's going to take me 4 days to get this board, and I can, if I need it quicker, I can pay for express.
Yeah,
but even
right.
the $2 boards, I'm getting in 5 days. It's like,
Yeah.
wow.
Right.
And rarely do your needs, as I said, if you want it faster, you can actually pay for crisis express courier thing option, right? So you
I
can
don't know
pay
how to do
10
that,
times
but
the
yeah.
cost of. Well,
Yeah.
usually it's a checkout option or whatever.
okay.
They'll go, okay, do you want the slower one or do you want the super crisis, courier option?
Yeah.
And but even then, you just build that into your design and prototyping process. Right, I've got 3 days to wait for my board or something. Whoop-de-doo. I'll work on
Right.
something else. I'll work on the firmware and then it'll be ready by the time the boards get here.
Right.
Kind of
right,
thing. It's one of
exactly.
those, R&D flows things. So,
Yep. Yeah. So I'm hoping to piece my two things together, cut out some antennas sometime soon, and
Sweet.
it seems like that's a good crossover. We'll see how that goes.
excellent.
But yeah, there's actually a really good app note about that. Did I ever talk about that on the show? There's a TI app note that just shows off all of the different, like all of the recommended antennas,
Oh, okay.
different
Right.
antenna shapes and stuff like that. Let me see if I can
Okay,
find this real
cool.
quick. Yeah, it's neat. It's because you literally then go and look at some of their dev boards. You're like, oh yeah, they just did that.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, not sure if I can.
Yeah, because that's not something your Joe average person laying out a board would know. It's like, oh, okay, I've got
Right.
this Bluetooth thing. You just, how do I do a Bluetooth antenna? I don't know. How do I do a GSM antenna? I don't know.
Right.
Well, you just follow the app note. Like you just do it exactly the same.
Right. Right.
So, yep. No, you
antenna
don't
selection.
need to go
It's,
to the
it's ANO58 if you want to look that up.
page
Antenna
turner.
selection guide.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's cool to see all the testing they do, and they have like a dev board where they can break it out, pigtails, and all the different things. So it's a nice resource.
Got it.
ANO58.
Yep, I'm having a look at that now. Oh, yeah, sweet. Yeah. Oh, wow, that's pretty comprehensive. Oh, geez. Oh, brief antenna theory. Oh, wow, yeah, someone's gone to town. Yeah, somebody had fun. Geez, who's that? Richard Wallace had fun. Good on
Yeah.
you, Richard. Good on you, Dick.
Yep.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. What else we got on this week's show?
Well, I was gonna ask you, what you building these days? Let's get a little update here on the
The
supply.
microsupply update. The microsupply update is more USB, more USB. We've gotten over all the
man.
HID hurdles. We've gotten over all
Oh,
those
good.
hurdles, and now it's USB PD. It's the power delivery thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and apparently, and David's working on this, and he's had to contact Rich Tech, who's the chip manufacturer, right? And there are like secret. There's these undocumented registers that do all the magic, and it's like they won't, and you have to contact them to get the secret squirrel list of registers and how they work, and you've got to promise not to give it to anyone else, and it's like what?
And Dave will now recite them on the air of the Empire. No.
Yeah, like seriously, he's looking at this code that he got. There's somebody's opened some code for this chip or whatever, and he's going, these it's right into these registers that aren't documented. And he's and he's debugging all this, and he's going, I have no idea what these registers do. So he has to contact the manufacturer, and sure enough, they get back to him fast enough, and they go, oh yeah, here's the secret squirrel information, here's the secret handshake, and geez, give me a break. Anyway, there are different ways to do Microsoft. Why am I saying Microsoft? USB PD, which is power delivery standard. It's really quite complex. We've talked about this before, which is why a lot of products don't use USB PD, is because the development time and effort is quite complex to meet the standard and everything, and to actually do it right. And there's two ways to do it. One is we're using ST processor on the USB side, as well as the Richtech part, and ST do actually have a USB PD library, right? So they do actually have it, but it takes over 32K apparently compiled just for the library, right?
Wow.
Yeah, they don't like to optimize their code, let's say that. And so if you want to use that, so if you want the advantages of having that shorter development time, you've got to pay an extra $2 for your microcontroller, because you've got to go to way up the chain. Yeah, you got to get a 256K micro, something like that. Yeah, it's killer. It's killer. Yeah. And then they also make a pairing chip as well, which communicates via I2C to the micro, and it handles the USB power delivery, protocols and negotiation and all that sort of jazz.
Got it. And it just hangs off the lines, or what does it do?
Yeah, it just hangs off, and it goes through that to the micro or something, and it communicates via I2C, and it's just it's a mess. It's a mess.
It doesn't sound very elegant.
No, USB PD is one of the biggest pain in the asses. So if you think you're going to be able to develop a USB PD product quickly, think again.
And you guys already have transceivers, like USB transceivers, built into this. You picked a processor with that built in.
Yeah, they're built in. But this is implementing the talking properly the USB PD protocol and actually doing the power negotiation and all that sort of jazz. And there's so much involved.
That you basically could have you wouldn't even needed the D plus D minus on your processor then, right?
Well, we do, because we're sending data as well. We're sending serial data as well. We're implementing a serial protocol over the USB, but we're also negotiating for the USB power.
Oh, sorry.
too.
So the I2C chip only handles on the power line. It doesn't do. Does it actually talk? Does it inject data packets on the D plus D minus as well?
Yes, I believe it does.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, I'd have to call up the schematic and everything to
no worries
verify. But it's like it's not easy. It's a real pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's not that bad. He's getting a hold of it. Once he got those registers and figured out what's going on, it's like okay, we're back on track.
Yeah, it's like having the Rosetta Stone at that point.
Yeah,
right?
it's exactly. But the fact that you have to do that, and it's just it's not documented, is just scary, really. So. And as we said, there are easier ways, but you pay for that, and then there's a trade-off. Do you pay $2 more for your product in your BOM cost forever, right? Because you've got to build that part in. You might sell 1 million widgets, right? Or do you take the hit in the development cost to develop your own on a smaller, to roll your own solution on a smaller, cheaper micro? And you've got to trade that off, how much development time is worth and how many units you're going to sell.
Your code might branch from theirs, and you'd have to keep an eye on it. And, that's tough.
And stuff like that, and how fast you want to get to market, and how many
it's
people you've got to work on.
The cost of diverging from the dev kit almost.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I had not. If I had if I knew how much effort all this USB stuff would have been, I would have, like way back at the start, I would have gone, oh no, look, I'll just go for some other solution somehow.
Right, right.
It was just
barrel jack it is.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, it's a pain. But now you're so far down the rabbit hole, you can't stop. We have to see it through. So. Yeah. And we're almost there. Like it's it's getting pretty close. Like we've come over multiple huge hurdles. And yeah. So anyway,
you can do it, man. This is interesting too. Like hearing about the the firmware versus the hardware. The hardware's been done for
hardware's
weeks,
been done
months,
for
right?
months, 6 months. And it's been 6 months or something of just like firmware hurdles and stuff like that. Yeah, you might think, oh, it's just a power supply that talks over USB. No, it ain't that easy, I'm afraid. So
right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting how that all works out.
Yep. Nasty.
So you mentioned the STM32. I had a thing on this on the list from this week. At first, I was reading this press release, and it was from Seed Studio, right? So Seed Studio is putting out this new little widgety thing called the Wile Light. Yep, they do that. And I'm reading it, and it says Wile Light RISC-V, right? And I'm like, what am I looking at here? And so I'm looking at this thing, and it's got an ESP8266. And first off, it's cheap. It's $7, right? So super cheap. It's got a ESP8266 on it. And then it's got an STM32 on it. Well, it's actually got the Giga devices, which is that processor we mentioned on here before, right? So that's the one that's the complete register match.
Right, yeah.
For the STM32, right? So Giga devices F103, right? So that's meant to match the STM32 F103. And so I'm looking at this thing, and I'm just like, I literally can't figure out. I'm like, is it the Wi-Fi thing that's different? I'm like, no, that's an ESP. And like back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And like, so what I realized is that Giga Devices decided it was a smart idea to make a completely different architecture part by changing one letter. So GD32 is Giga Devices 32, V F103.
All right.
The STM32 clone version is GD32 F103. And so it's just that V in there, and now it's instead of being an ARM device, it's a RISC-V. It's a RISC-V device. It's like,
oh,
holy
God,
shit!
What?
Yeah,
This is insane.
I just imagine that a couple people are gonna be like, I can't get anything to compile for this thing. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I'm sure I ordered the right part. Look at the part number.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but the other interesting thing here is that the Giga Devices is making a RISC-V part that's it's already out in the market. So it's the Bumblebee core, and RISC-V is out there, man. I mean, it's been out there, but it's more and more silicon that's kind of hitting the real world. So it's very exciting.
And what is the driver? What is the need for RISC-V? Because you don't pay the ARM royalties. Is that
right.
one of the major?
Well, and so
is that the major driver? The major driver, or
the thing that we've gotten wrong in the past that we need to make sure we make clear here. RISC-V is an ISA, which is instruction set architecture, right? So it's actually not a processor. Someone made a processor that was conforming to that ISA. In this case, it's the Bumblebee core, right? But I don't know anything about that.
But now you can effectively say it's a processor core, pretty much. Like,
yeah, I guess in the same way you might say something is ARM, right?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to stop people thinking that and saying that. It's just,
Yeah,
just
I think the equivalent would be like the Bumblebee core would be like being a Cortex M0. That's like the core.
Right.
But it's still an ARM architecture processor, right? So this would be a RISC-V ARM architecture processor. So that's kind of how I think about it. I don't know if that's right, but that's how I think about it at least.
Yeah.
It's just it's interesting that it's out there because, like you said, it's they're not charging royalties on it. There's a lot more room for improvement, and this leads into another story that we have on the thing this week. Which before the show you said, well, why do we care about this? It's actually driving ARM's behavior too. So one of the things we have on the show this week is ARM enables custom instructions for embedded CPUs. You better bet your bottom dollar that that's coming from the fact that you can just go and make your own processor now, right? They're basically being like, oh, you wanted custom? We didn't know. Now you can be custom too, right? And I'm not really sure the logistics of it because I assume it's like you have to be at the stage where you're developing your own chips, you're buying a core and
Right.
you're paying royalties. I think you actually don't pay for the core anymore either. You just pay royalties.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, that's always been the case. I thought you paid for a royalty. Where if
You
you're a
always
chip
pay the royalty
manufacturer.
for sure. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that you used to have to pay an upfront fee as well to get access
Oh,
to
okay,
that.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like a big chunk of money up front and then royalty
Right.
stuff. I think they're moving to a royalty only because if you say, hey, it's going to be $300,000 to get started, or you can
Yeah.
just go and get one of these free cores over here, some people are going to make that differentiation.
Uh-huh, that's it.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it's going to be very interesting seeing. First off, hopefully ARM continues to play nice. They had a little bit of a smear campaign, just mini smear,
Mini smear.
just like a mini bagel schmear versus. But I think it's going to continue to get more interesting.
Right.
And I think there's still benefits too. ARM is doing interesting things with like the embed. That's like their real time
Yep.
OS. And
Well, we've been talking about, Risk V, Risk 5. Is it Risk V or Risk 5?
it's RISC-V, yeah.
Risk 5. Everyone, we've been talking about Risk 5 and everyone's talking about it, but that's only in our sphere, right?
Yeah.
That's like
We don't matter.
out in the real world, it's like how much penetration is Risk 5 getting in the
Right,
in the
yeah.
industrial consumer market, right? Probably
that's gonna have some
border on
lag,
zero so far. Yeah, there's going to be huge.
Yeah,
lag.
I think so. And
Yeah.
and the fact being that okay, so you and I both say, or how about this? So Microsupply comes out tomorrow, and you're like, all right, I'm going to start on the next version of the Microsupply. I'm going to use a RISC-V processor, and it's like the amount of chips that you can buy off the shelf, which you've always said that if it doesn't exist unless you could buy it on DigiKey, which
Yeah, that's right.
is a good guidelines, I think, at least from a product perspective. It's very, very small, and so it's growing. You can go buy a gig. I think you can buy. I think this might be early silicon, the Giga Devices one.
Oh, okay.
But
All right.
that's not the only one that's out there. And you can always go buy FPGA, and you could drop this on there too, right? There's lots of people
course, you could
doing
actually
that
roll
kind of
your
thing.
own kind of
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Right.
But once again, it's the same thing we talked about with USB PD. Do you roll your own, or do you go with
Yeah.
a solution that's physically more expensive
right.
because it's a
It's all
shorter
engineering
development time?
trade-offs, right? Of
Yeah.
cost and risk and time and power.
Risk.
Power being a big one too, right? Not risk, yeah. Nice.
We're here all week, folks.
That's right. Try the wheel. Yeah, I think that it's a trade-off, right? And I think right now it's not that, but I think what we're going to continue to see as people continue to listen to the Amp Hour for the rest of their lives, of course, is that we're just going to, hey, this new part's on a DigiKey or a Mauser or an Arrow or whatever, and you can just go buy it. Or, hey, TI decided to drop this core as an experiment into their thing.
Right.
It's not unheard of that, even a microchip, which was on MIPS for all those years, then they have a, they have an ARM processor too, and a bunch of them.
Yeah,
right.
Well, only because
so-
they bought it via Atmel.
who was
They
it?
bought Atmel, and then the ARM came over with it.
No, it was before that actually. It was.
Oh, was it?
Who was
Okay.
that? Luminary Micro. That's who it was.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Oh wait, was that TI?
Eh.
Who cares? It doesn't matter.
Anyway, this whole part number thing that you were talking about, right? Part number ambiguation. The video I just released 10 minutes before we recorded this is that I tore apart one of these LED light drivers, right? Constant current LED light drivers, and it's using a cheap one hung low brand chip on there, and I was able to find the data sheet for the exact part number, but it was marked confidential. It wasn't on the manufacturer's website, right? The chip
Wait, how'd you
manufacturer.
find
Well, I Googled
The dark web. Dave's a hacker.
The dark web. Yeah, I went to the dark web. Psst, buddy, hey, have you got
right,
this?
Want to buy a data sheet?
You got that? Right. Anyway, so the company is OnBright, who you might never have heard of. Anyway, they make these LED controller drivers that are in all these Chinese, LED driver things for your lights. Anyway, so I found the exact part number, and then I go, well, beauty. So I started recording my video, and I was going through it. I was recording, blah, blah, going through the data sheet, and then I realized this isn't the right part. Even though the part number is exact, it's a different
Playing
package.
loosey-goosey with the part names, huh?
Yeah, and it was like, and it was like it was a 6-pin SOT23 instead of a DIP 8, which is what I had. But the part number was identical, and this one that I had the datasheet for used an external driver transistor and then I had to go back and check my board. No, there's no external driver transistor.
You're taking crazy pills.
I know. I was like, and you can see this in the video, and it's just exactly the same part number.
Yeah, I think maybe this is part is just because it's low cost stuff, but like I also wonder. I remember like in Bunny's articles about Shanzai phone. Is that what it is? Shanzai? Remember the phones article that Bunny did many years ago?
Yeah.
About like how there's like the kind of copy culture and stuff like that?
Yes.
And I just wonder the same thing where it's like, well, we're trying to make a cross and it's pretty close and you have to kind of just test if it is actually the exact same part, you know?
Right. Well, I wonder if this company just like rolled this custom variant that had the inbuilt power transistor and they didn't even bother releasing a data sheet for it. They just went, some company approached them with an order. I want, 500,000 of these chips, but I'd love if it had a built-in power transistor. Oh, yeah, we can do that in a DIP 8 package and just whack a power transistor on there. And they just did it and just didn't bother to, actually release a data sheet for it. Maybe there is, but they just kept the same part number and it's like, what?
Yeah, so that would be interesting if you could like test the various. I mean, because the pins would add up in that case, right?
It was the same except it had
the function was the same, pretty much.
Yeah. The function was absolutely identical. Yeah. Yeah. Except it had the built-in
there was
power
no mention
transistor.
of like alt packages on the bottom of the data sheet.
No, there was no in the data sheet. No mention of alternative packages. It was simply that. Yeah. So nuts.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch the video yet. I'm sorry, but did release it right before, so I have an excuse this time.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that just reminded me of that. Bloody,
it's tricky. I mean, I think especially like markings on their own are tough, but then you're sometimes you have markings that are like kind of hard to discern what they're doing there. But then if the parts are exactly the same, it's like, oh man, that's tough to do. So
crazy. Anyway, didn't cause me any drama because I just got the function. Yeah, functionally it was the same, so it worked for my purposes. But anyway,
I made some videos for the first time in a while.
No,
I did. Yeah, getting a Blinky
for your course. Yeah, another getting a Blinky.
Yeah, 5.0.
Or is it a follow?
It's the software is now on.
Didn't we mention? Oh no, we forgot to mention it the other week. That's right.
We did. Yeah.
We did. Okay. Yeah. All right.
It's the exact same thing. People are like, why didn't you add like mounting holes or do anything different? I'm like, well, it's just, it doesn't, I should have,
Because they keep changing KiCad the way it works, right? So all your old videos are completely obsolete. Are you going to actually remove the old videos, or
I usually just I link them and I unlist them.
I
don't like break the link or anything like that. But
okay.
I definitely put notes that this is not the video you want.
Sure. Yep. These are not the droids you're looking for.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. It's tough too because and someone had complained about it too. It's like there is a lot of old, like crufty documentation on the internet. When software moves that, and there's no one really like controlling it. It's basically Google's in charge. So you have to kind of search for like KiCad 5.0 and then like. Sometimes I'll add 2019 to make sure it's not an old issue from 2015 that's been fixed,
Well, maybe I should do that to old videos because I still get, emails. Oh, I watched your multimeter shootout and, well, is this still the best one? Dude, that video was 9 years ago.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was
Yeah, it makes me wish you could do more like a picture-in-picture. It'd be like, "Hello, welcome to this video from 9 years ago. By the way, there's an updated video. Don't take this is for historical purposes only."
Yeah.
It's tough to do. But that's
I should update the title and the description of that. Some old videos that aren't relevant anymore. But I got 1,500 videos. So
of course. Yeah, it's tough. I tried it. You could do is you could just do if you appended the year onto all of the videos, that might just be enough of an indicator, because that would be, people would be like, oh, 2009?
Right. I might do that for all new review shootout videos. I might embed the year in the thumbnail or something 2019 shootout.
How's this
you
going to
know?
work in like 20 years when there's all this, there's even more cruft on the internet? You know,
Right,
like,
right.
it's just like, oh yeah, well, I watched a video of a guy that's not been around doing videos for the past 20 years, but
Are you saying I'm going out of business? Is that?
actually,
that the
I even avoided,
implication?
I was going to say someone died. I didn't want to,
Right, yeah,
that sounded really bad.
I was kind of getting that vibe, but I thought, you know.
No, I just mean, Dave, what I'm trying to say is you're so successful you'd retire and, you know, not make
right,
videos
yeah,
anymore.
of course,
you know?
right.
Just,
No, I've probably got a good 20 years left in me before.
oh yeah, that's
You know.
the greyness in your beard is first off you got to grow the beard and then the beard's
Right,
got to turn
okay.
gray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a real problem. Like old content, old, you know.
Sure.
That's
Sure.
not-
Yeah. It's you know, Google will help you find just about anything you want, including a $17 bench supply.
Yeah, I was perplexed by this because it's on DigiKey's website, and I clicked the link before the show, and it's like, what? Are DigiKey selling a $17 bench supply?
Yeah.
And it's went, no, they can't possibly. be." And sure enough, they aren't. But it was one of the staffers, Rick W. at, I presume he's a staffer there.
Yeah.
And,
At least a writer.
Yeah.
On their blog.
And,
yeah.
and it's just, and he's done an extensive review and teardown of this $17. Where'd he get it from? Does he mention it?
I don't. I think probably like an eBay or an Alibaba or something like that. But
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But $17 for a bench supply. Yeah, it's, you know, it's crusty as, right? It's a, you know, a
Right.
piece of folded sheet metal with a, you know,
Right.
the cheapest one hung low transformer you can get, and
Right.
you know, but
yeah, it's
still,
basically a transformer, but it's got like a display on. It's got knobs. You know, like potentiometers aren't
it's got
cheap,
knobs.
and
you know,
you know, mounting
you wanna
mounting
bet?
plates. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
I just mean mechanical
yeah.
stuff always adds up. You know, like that.
right, yeah, it does.
And
Yeah.
then someone's got to when it's like a through hole thing, then someone's got to put it together.
That's the video that I did release this morning. Once again with that lead driver, right? I
Yeah.
tore down two different lead drivers. One was a bottom of the barrel one which flickers, right? And the reason it flickers is because they've cut cost, right?
Months in.
Months in. And when I tore it down, right? And sure enough, they solder the wires directly onto the board. You know how these little, you know, you've used these
Yeah.
little lead light controller, right? Usually they have screw terminals at the end, but no, they didn't bother because they cost money, right? They cost a couple of cents extra.
That's right.
So they, you know, even in a huge volume, they cost a couple of cents extra. So they know the mains wires soldered straight in, the output wires soldered straight in. You know, none of these, even though the case had the holes for the screw terminals, right? It had the holes to put your screwdriver in,
Yeah,
right? They
yeah,
just know. This was their
I've been
ultra
interested
cheap
in that
version.
before with like I've seen. I think it was actually it's my like cheapo hot air station. Like that I bought.
Right.
And I'm like, why doesn't this thing have an IEC connector on it? Like, I wanted to just be able to
Yeah,
swap
of
out,
course.
you know, like pull
It
the
costs
plug on
money.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it costs money, and it's probably it's probably safer that way. You know,
Yeah, right. Well,
they take the safest thing they could do and they do the opposite. You know, this thing was
it's-
real cheap, and they're like $40
Yeah.
now. Oh my God, they're so cheap. It's crazy.
yeah. No,
yeah.
but well, it's amazing that you can get like $17 for a bench supply. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, right.
And does that include delivery? Surely not.
I don't think so.
Because they're fairly heavy, right?
Oh
The
yeah,
thing-
we
the
should
problem
follow up
with
on your
power
thing from last
supplies
week.
is
If people haven't watched the video from your last week, it was a DMM / field. What was it called? A field tester or something?
Oh, the process meter.
Process meter. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, process. American
Sorry, process meter. Yeah.
Process meter, right?
yeah.
And
But like, that was
yeah.
immediately like gone. But it was.
It was immediately gone, but there are reports that people have been receiving them. So, but there are tons of reports of the sellers just came back and said, sorry, we can't deliver this. Would you like this $2 cheapie instead? It's the best seller, trust us.
Right,
and it's like,
right.
you know.
You looking to measure some mains voltage? This will do you fine, sir.
But yeah, no, some people have been getting them, but yeah, the many sellers on there pulled it within hours of the video. There was just such demand, and they went, holy shit, there's a run on the bank, and they all panicked.
yeah.
So I can just picture them at the Shenzhen market, because a lot of these, if you don't know, a lot of these AliExpress stores actually just are a little stand at the Shenzhen market or somewhere.
That's right,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
something like that. So I can picture them all, you know, shouting across the corridors, there's a run on these meters, you know.
We've been
Or
EV
they-
blogged.
well, often they won't carry the stock themselves. They'll say, yeah, I've got 300 in stock, but they won't
Right.
carry it. So if they
just
get
know
an
a
order, they will just walk around the corner to the next store that has the stock, and they'll buy it from them, and then they'll then they'll ship it to you from their stand, you know. And that's how it works. And yeah, and they all just shut it down. They all shut it within hours. You can watch them try, and people were watching this like in real time as all these stores just vanished. They all suddenly shut down their listings within hours of each other. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, some people are getting them. Some people got lucky. So there was probably a stock of 100 out there or something, and
okay,
a true
so like
stock
a factory seconds or like a
they're factory seconds or something and fell off the truck or whatever. We still don't know the story. So anyway, it was that video was hugely. People love a bargain, It's
right.
for
$9,
then
it becomes like a collector's item too. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Hey, I got one. It's like one of these badges of honor. I was in so quick that I.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, these cheap power supplies. I don't know what to think. Like, well,
there is a high frequency output at the bottom. It is for a linear supply. Like linear supply is like it's really just about having like a clean transformer and
exactly.
Some big caps. Like
well, is there high frequency stuff? Why is there high frequency stuff? It's just a linear.
I'm guessing it's probably bleeding in from the.
That could be just common mode noise. That could be measurement.
12 megahertz
issues. Yeah, for sure.
Well, this thing does not seem like it's
will just
very...
go right through your transformer.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that stuff just goes straight through the AC coupling,
Yeah.
And, yep. I've done a video on that somewhere. But, yeah, I mean, like for $17 for just somebody setting up a cheap-ass, lab.
Right,
it's like, They did go to the effort to put the red sealer on the connectors. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
So they don't actually vibrate loose when the sealer, the thread, not thread locker, but glue kind of.
Right. Yep.
Red stuff, red gunk.
Have you ever done someone's done a lab for under a certain amount of dollars? Was that you?
Me.
That did that?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's me. And once again, that's a year later. It's completely out of date. I keep getting
it's tough.
people.
Right.
Please do a new one because everything's out of date. Some things aren't, but others are. So those things have to be done yearly. Really.
Yeah.
It's
well, there you go, Dave. There's your idea for video today.
I know. Yeah. The
you
future of the EEV blog is
version.
just yep. That's the future of the EEV blog. Just updated
the wire cutter
old
for the
videos.
discerning electronics nerd.
Yep. It's just it's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, people love cheap test gear and cheap stuff, bargains. It's just every time I do a video like that, it's massively popular. If I was a smart YouTuber, that's the only content I'd be putting out.
The Dave branded version. That's right.
Yeah, that's why Clive is popular. Big Clive, because he just all he does is his whole channel is just tearing down this cheap Chinese shit.
Yeah,
and it's just funny,
Yeah, I think it's you get lowest common denominator, right? Everybody can afford to buy it, and then
exactly.
It's interesting to see when there's some cool
appeal.
tips in there too. Yeah.
Yep. Even your pros, like half of my audience are engineering
Of course,
professionals, right? But even they
I'm well, that's the thing, Dave. We're all cheapskates, so there is that.
Yeah, exactly. We're engineers by definition. We're cheapskates.
Right. We can double the amount of stuff we get if we get half the price. So
I could mention how I was literally diagnosed the other week as being a tight ass.
Really? How's that? Did you like a doctor do this?
Physio. I went to my physio for a knee problem, and I came away saying, nope, I'm literally a tight ass. My glutes are so tight that it's causing knee problems. Seriously. So I've got to, so every time before my gym class now, I've got to roll a tennis ball around my bum. I've got to loosen my, otherwise I get knee problems. Yeah.
Oh man, you should do a lacrosse ball and then you'd start weeping like a child. That's the worst thing. Have you ever done a lacrosse ball before, like the rubber ball?
Dude, we don't even know what lacrosse here is.
Well, anyways,
I know it's some sort of hockey variant.
Yeah.
It's a hockey type thing.
I used to be an athlete, so I used to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you ever roll out a muscle with a lacrosse ball, it's like hard rubber, and like you'll start crying. It's like, it's terrible.
Yep.
Oh god. Yep. So certified tight ass. That's
I am literally diagnosed tight ass. Yeah.
That's great. That's
Love
great.
it. I know. So I'm telling everyone, it's absolutely hilarious. Yep.
Should make a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Maybe
literal
not.
tight ass.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, it's great. Anyway, we're way over time. Do we have anything last minute?
I don't
This one went quick.
think so. There's stuff on the
There is.
subreddit. Check it out.
Yeah,
Oh, that's the last thing. We are going to be I'll have already announced this at the beginning of the episode, but we're doing our quasi-annual survey, and there will be some prizes. So we
Where
have
the hell are we getting prizes from?
from you. We some old school DMMs that were sent to me will be in the offering. Some Amp Hour notebooks,
Right.
and some Digilent Analog Discovery 2s. And we'll see what else we can dig up. So
Analog Discovery 2s, they're worth a pretty penny.
they're worth, they're like $200. So I'd been gifted those by Digilent. They were very, very kind about that. And
excellent. Well done.
So yeah, talk about free stuff.
Digilent.
There we go.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And we'll see what else we have kicking around. But if you're interested, you definitely have to put in your email address in order to win. I'm not going to use it for anything other than
we have to be able to contact you. No, I'm sick of doing contests and somebody wins and then I can't contact them. It's like, God.
Make sure it's a good email address. So I won't use it for anything else. But
trust us.
Yeah, we're too lazy to do that. Come on.
Yeah. We're just
Marketing. What's that? Oh boy.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So fill out the survey, and we'd love to hear from you.
Cool.
There were really good comments last time too. Thanks for doing it. Whoever did it last time.
Yeah, it's
Thank
great.
you for that. Yeah.
I hate Dave. I hate Chris. It's like
that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. We read all the comments.
All right, Dave. We'll talk to you soon.
Catch you next time.
See ya.